Hey crafty friends, it's Joy here for Honeybee Stamps. For my card today, I decided to play around with patterned paper and vellum. So here's the patterned paper that I'm using. This is from the brand new Simply Spring release. So I'm using the Simply Spring 6 by 8.5 paper pad and the Pinstripes and Polka Dots Spring 6 by 8.5 paper pad. I am trimming it with my paper trimmer. I'm making 1/4 inch strips from all of these pattern papers. They are double-sided, so I think all but one I flipped over and used both sides. I'm not measuring how many, or excuse me, counting how many strips I need. I did have some left over when I was done, but you can always put that aside for another project. So I'm going to finish trimming up these little strips here, and I'm trimming them the long ways, especially on this pattern paper. It's great because you're going to get that orange to pink, which is really beautiful. And then look at all these pretty florals. That Simply Spring paper is absolutely gorgeous. Okay, so now all of the strips are cut, and I am going to be making an A2 size card, so that's 4 1/4 by 5.5. And so I want to have these on a diagonal. I'm separating these out, flipping over the ones I want to use both sides. So I already have that ready in my mind of which ones I want to use, which sides I want to use. So here is my A2 size card panel. And I'm just kind of deciding how I want to lay this out. Again, I am going to do it diagonal. I thought for a second maybe I would do it up and down, but I think diagonal is a lot of fun. I want to add adhesive all over this whole background so I don't have to add adhesive to each one of these paper strips. And this will go much quicker if you add adhesive all over your background. I'm just going to start placing them, making sure they line up right next to each other. This was actually quite relaxing. I really wasn't worried about a pattern or order. I think the only thing was I didn't want to have two exact ones right next to each other, or I just kind of want the colors spread out. So there really was no real rhyme or reason to it. But it definitely turned out so gorgeous, and look at how easy this is. And again, I will have some leftovers, so you can put this aside. You could create another project, like a smaller background. You could trim this down smaller, but we're going to add vellum to the top of this. And I just love using vellum. I've definitely been using it a lot more lately. And we're also going to use one of the new embossing folders, the Dogwood Blooms 3D embossing folder from the new Honeybee Stamps release. I'm going to just finish up these last few pieces. Really, this didn't take too long. I'm going back and forth on the sides, and it does kind of look like a hot mess when you have all of this stuff hanging off. I was like, oh no, is this actually going to be cute? But honestly, once I trimmed off all of the excess, it was so beautiful, and I thought, oh, this is fantastic. This is going to work out so great. So let's add just a few more. And when you're laying down your adhesive, make sure you get to the edges of it. This top edge, I didn't have enough adhesive, so I needed to add a little bit of liquid glue, which is not a big deal, but I would say take your adhesive to all of the edges and to the corners, and then you just won't have a problem. Like that little piece right there did not want to stick. But now we have all of our pieces. I'm making sure everything's pressed down, flipping it over, and then I can start trimming off the excess. I'll add this blue one back on. I couldn't get the tape runner to go on such a small little piece, so I added a little bit of liquid glue, and I will cut that one last so it can give it some time to dry. And once you get all of this trimmed off, it is so pretty. Like I said, the Simply Spring paper is absolutely stunning. And when you add those pinstripes and polka dots to it, it's so pretty. Look at how pretty that background is. Okay, now I have a piece of vellum that I trimmed down 1/4 inch on all sides. I am going to place that in the 3D embossing folder. Again, this is the Dogwood Blooms. Run that through my die cut machine, and then this will go on top of our back piece. Now you could also make this much smaller than I did. I wanted to fit a larger sentiment, and that is from the Big Time Kindness, stamp and die. But if you wanted to see more of the stripes on the background, which you will see them through the vellum, but if you want to see them clearly, then just make your vellum piece smaller. I'm inking this up with Honeybee Stamps metallic gold ink. And I'm using the coordinating die. So I have 2 sentiments. It says "You're amazing," and then the "Love ya" at the bottom, which once I'm done die cutting it, then I can trim that smaller sentiment out with my paper trimmer. But now we've got that great large sentiment. Let's trim out that paper trim, or that paper trimmer. Let's trim out the paper trimmer. No, let's trim the smaller sentiment. I am adding some foam tape behind it because I love my sentiments to be popped up. So I'm using foam strip adhesive and just putting that in places and trimming the little excess pieces off so it's not too big and it's not sticking out from behind. Now I'm going to adhere my sentiments first to my vellum. So when I'm using vellum, I like to do this for a really good reason. I want to hide the other adhesive that I need to adhere on the back side of the vellum. I need to hide that behind my sentiments. So I'm putting those in place first. Then I want to use just a little bit of liquid glue behind those sentiments, and then I can center this in my card panel. But because I'm adhering this directly to the background, you are able to see those stripes through the vellum. If I had it popped up, you would see it way less. Then I'm just adding a few of the Simply Spring gems. It's kind of the orangey, not gold, but kind of leaning towards that. And I can adhere those in place and then adhere this to a white A2 size card panel. And then look at this. Look, you can see those beautiful pattern papers from behind. It's peeking out on the sides, and then you've got that great embossed image on your vellum. Thank you guys so very much for stopping by and watching. I hope that you enjoyed this project, and I hope that you feel inspired. Have a wonderful day. Bye.